You remember last time we started this first canto of book 3, the Book of the Divine Mother. This canto is called The Pursuit of the Unknowable. After King Asvapati has reached the very top of all that can be known, he has, as a representative individual of the human race, he has explored all the planes and gained all the powers. But then he finds all is too little that the world can give. And there is some reality beyond the world which makes everything worthwhile. But somehow that unknowable reality seems to be beyond his grasp. Sometimes it appears like this or like that. But he is helped to go on rising to higher and higher levels. The last lines we read, aspiring and half sinking and upborne, invincibly he ascended without pause. So I'm going to read on from there to the bottom of page 307. Always a signless, vague immensity brooded, without approach, beyond response, condemning finite things to nothingness, fronting him with the incommensurable. Then, to the ascent, there came a mighty term. A height was reached where nothing made could live. A line where every hope and search must cease. Neared some intolerant, bare reality. A zero formed, pregnant with boundless change. On a dizzy verge, where all disguises fail, and human mind must abdicate in light, or die like a moth in the naked blaze of truth, he stood compelled to a tremendous choice. All he had been and all towards which he grew must now be left behind, or else transform into a self of that which has no name. Alone and fronting an intangible force which offered nothing to the grasp of thought, his spirit faced the adventure of the inane. Abandoned by the worlds of form, he strove. A fruitful worldwide ignorance foundered here. Thought's long, far-circling journey touched its close, and ineffective paused the actor will. The symbol modes of being helped no more. The structures nescience builds, collapsing, failed. And even the spirit that holds the universe, fainted in luminous insufficiency, in an abysmal lapse of all things built, transcending every perishable support and joining at last its mighty origin. The separate self must melt or be reborn into a truth beyond the mind's appeal. All glory of outline, sweetness of harmony, rejected like a grace of trivial notes, expunged from being's silence, nude, austere, died into a fine and blissful nothingness. The demiurges lost their names and forms. The great schemed worlds that they had planned and wrought passed, taken and abolished one by one. The universe removed its colored veil, and at the unimaginable end of the huge riddle of created things appeared the far-seen Godhead of the whole. His feet firm-based on life's stupendous wings, omnipotent, a lonely seer of time, inward, inscrutable, with diamond gaze. Attracted by the unfathomable regard, the unsolved slow cycles to their fount returned, to rise again from that invisible sea. Would you read the first sentence, just one sentence, please, Hermanat?
Always a signless, vague immensity, brooded, without approach, beyond response, condemning finite things to nothingness, fronting him with incommensurable.
There we are. That's the full stop. So King Asvapati, on his journey, invincibly he's ascending without pause. But however far he goes, always there's this signless, vague immensity, like a featureless sky, a vast, featureless sky. There's no sign. It's vague, there's nothing you can say about it. It doesn't have any particular quality except this vastness. It's an immensity, something huge. It broods, it brooded. Again, I'm going to say about this word, it's a word that comes quite often. The image is of the mother bird, particularly the mother hen, who goes into a kind of trance and sits on her eggs until they are ready to hatch. So anybody who's brooding, they are in a kind of meditative trance-like state, but something is going to hatch, something is going to come out. You're brooding, you're turning thoughts over in your mind, not coming to any conclusion, but eventually something will come out. So this immensity is brooding, kind of looming, shadowy there, but there's the sense that it contains something. Something will come out. But it can't be approached. It's without approach. It doesn't give any response. There's no answer to that questioning of King Aswapati. And what it seems to do, it seems to condemn finite things to nothingness. It seems to say that everything which has a form, which is limited, which is individualized, will have to be dissolved. They will lose their form. And as King Aswapati mounts, and always that immensity is there, it confronts him with the incommensurable. If something is incommensurable, there's nothing that you can compare it to. It can't be measured against anything because it's different from everything else. There's nothing that it can be measured against or compared with. Incommensurable. If two things are commensurable, they can be measured by the same kind of scale. But if there's something that's incommensurable, there's no scale, there's no standard of comparison, nothing that you can compare it with or measure it against. So like a great sky, this signless, vague immensity, the incommensurable. Can't even see how vast it is. Martin.
Then to the ascent there came a mighty turn. A height was reached where nothing made could live. A line where every hope and search must cease. Near some intolerant, bare reality. A zero form, brackened this boundless change.
Mm-hmm. So he's been ascending without pause, invincibly, but now there comes a limit, a term, as where something must end. To the ascent there came a mighty term. He reaches a height where nothing made, nothing that's been created can live. There's as if a line, a borderline, where every hope and search must cease, must come to an end. All these movements that keep the universe turning, that line where every hope and search must cease, gets nearer and nearer to some intolerant, bare reality, some ultimate reality which will not allow anything else to exist except itself. But itself is bare, featureless, incommensurable. And it seems like a zero, like a nothing. But that zero that forms, that he sees, seems to be pregnant. It's going to give birth to boundless change. If he crosses that line, there will be a change which has no limit, no boundary to it. Danny, would you read?
On a dizzy verge where all disguises fail, the human mind must abdicate in light or die like a moth in the naked blaze of truth. He stood, compelled to a tremendous choice.
Thank you. So a verge is an edge. Sri Aurobindo says this verge is dizzy. It must be because it's so high, you get a kind of vertigo. You begin to feel dizzy, you might fall. A dizzy verge, on that dizzy verge, on that edge, all disguises fail. Everything that is not essential, which is not reality, just falls off. They can't exist anymore. And the human mind has to abdicate, to give up. When a king realizes that he can't rule any longer, he abdicates, he steps down, he says, I'm not the ruler. So for us, the human mind has been our leader and our guide and our ruler. At this point, the mind has to say, I give up. I can't go on here. It must abdicate in light. It must surrender to that light. Or else it will just be consumed the way that a moth is consumed in a candle flame. But in this case, it would just be eaten up by the naked blaze of truth. This sun of truth, this incredible energy and heat and light would just eat away the mind. So there, King Asvapati stands on this edge. He feels compelled to make a choice, a tremendous choice. He has to choose. Would you read?
All he had been and all towards which he grew must now be left behind or else transformed into a self of that which has no name.
Thank you. So he's been so much, he's achieved so much, everything he had been, and everything that he's been growing towards, this person who embodies all our energies of upward spiritual endeavor. He has to leave all that behind, or else everything that he has been and everything that he's been growing towards must transform, it must change itself or be transformed into a self, a portion, a representation of something which has no name, that which is beyond all names. Joel.
Alone and fronting an intangible force which offered nothing to the grasp of thought, his spirit faced the adventure of the inane. Abandoned by the worlds of form, he strove.
Thank you. So there he is on this great height. He's all alone. He's facing, confronting an intangible force. There's an energy, there's a strength, a force which can't be touched. And it can't be grasped by thought. There's nothing there in that force for thought to get hold of. It offered nothing to the grasp of thought. His spirit, so it's not his mind, it's his spirit which is facing the adventure of the inane. Inane is usually a negative word. Something that's inane is senseless, stupid, foolish. It has no meaning. Here it doesn't quite mean that, but it means something which can't be understood, which is seems to be meaningless. There is nothing there for thought to grasp and define. So that's a kind of adventure if he's going to continue. We see that there's a kind of struggle in him. He strove, he's struggling, he's still making this effort, but he's abandoned by the worlds of form. There are no more forms, no more limits, nothing that the senses or the thought can grasp at all. A great formless mystery. Confronts him as the bare reality.
What is the significance of certain words which are capitalized?
It's not absolutely consistent throughout Savitri for various reasons, but usually when it has a capital like that, like here thought or inane, it gives it a kind of universal application. We can have a thought, we can have thoughts, but there's a plane or a universal movement of thought. And here this inane, this apparently, or this something whose significance is beyond our understanding. It's something vast, universal, or even more beyond that. And similarly with form and will. These are Linda.
A beautiful word wide ignorance, founded here. Tongues, long, far, circling journey, touch its close, and ineffective bounds the after will.
Yes. So here we are in this worldwide ignorance, and it's been very, very fruitful. So much has emerged from it. But on that height where he is, it founders. This is what happens to a ship when it gets driven onto the rocks and it's just destroyed. So that ignorance which has been fruitful, there it can't continue its journey. It is just wrecked like a ship. This long, far circling journey of evolving thought, going round and round in circles, but perhaps rising higher. Now it touched its close. And the will, this will which has been so important for King Asvapati, he's been the thinker, he's been the representative of the will for something higher and truer. Now that will seems to be powerless. It pauses, ineffective. It can't do anything anymore. Prasanna?
The simple modes of being helped no more. The structures, missiles, beams collapse in fail, and even the spirit that holds the universe fainted in numerous insufficiency.
Yes. So all these modes of being that we experience and know about here in the manifestation, they are symbols of something else. No? They are symbol modes of being. And they are no longer any use to King Asvapati. all the structures and formations that signify the universe to us, these are built actually by nescience, by not knowing. So these structures now, they just collapse. They don't support anything, they don't hold anything, they don't mean anything even anymore. And even that spirit, that cosmic spirit that holds and supports the universe, even this faints, it becomes weak and fades in luminous insufficiency. It is not strong enough, it is not true enough, it is not, it's just not enough to face that reality that he's facing now. Patricia.
In an abysmal lapse of all things built, transcending every perishable support, and joining at last its mighty origin, the separate self must melt or be reborn into a truth beyond the mind's appeal.
The separate self, the individual being. Here it is King Asvapati's own individualized being. In this situation where everything is collapsing, in an abysmal lapse of all things built, all the structures and constructions that support us in the universe, all these are just falling down into an abyss, into a deep hole. So in this situation, the separate self, he says, has to transcend. It has to go beyond all these supports, all these things that have been built, that have supported its sense of selfhood, all these perishable supports. They can't last. So it has to go beyond all those supports, and it has to at last join its mighty origin. Where has this separate self come from? When everything else collapses, what is the support? Only the origin, the essential existence. So this separate self, either it must just melt and merge into that formlessness, or it must be reborn into a truth that's beyond the appeal of the mind. There seem to be two possibilities, that the separate self can just dissolve, or it can find a new basis for its existence in some truth which is beyond the mind's appeal. Bhavan.
All glory of outline, sweetness of harmony, rejected like a grace of trivial notes, expunged from being silence, mute, austere, died into a fine and blissful nothingness.
So all the beauty of the universe, no? All glory of outline, of form, all sweetness of harmony, these things are rejected. They're rejected, he says, like a grace of trivial notes. If you're a musician, you will know that, at least in European classical music, there's the main melody or line of development of music, but sometimes they put in a little twiddle, a few notes to kind of make it more delightful. These are called grace notes. No? And you can, of course, play the melody without them. So here Sri Aurobindo says, all that beauty in the universe, all the sweetness of harmony, it's as if they are just little grace notes which don't really need to be there. They can be, they are trivial, they don't have a lot of significance. And here, in this formlessness, they get rejected. They even get expunged. They're just removed altogether from this silence of pure existence, being nude without any covering, austere, nothing added, no unnecessary grace. It's only the essential thing, the essential existence. So all those beautiful things, these grace notes, they die away like the sound of music dies away into a fine nothingness. But that nothingness has something wonderful about it. It's a fine and blissful nothingness. Nargis.
The demiurges lost the names and forms, the great schemed worlds that they had planned and wrought, passed, taken and abolished one by one.
Yes. So the demiurges, this term comes from those philosophies that believe that there are equal powers of good and evil. They share the universe between them. They are the demiurges. Each of them is equally powerful. But I think here Sri Aurobindo refers to the gods, the ones who are not the supreme, but they are the cosmic powers. So these demiurges, they are of course forms and representations of the Supreme, and now they lose their names and forms in this unknowable. And all the great worlds that they have planned and created, made, they are also dissolved, passed away. He says, taken and abolished one by one. So it's as if there's a great cloud of formlessness or nothingness coming and dissolving all those great worlds, all the planes that he has been exploring one by one. Now they all disappear one by one. You can read the next sentence.
The universe removed its colored veil, not the unimaginable end of the huge riddle of created things, appeared the far-seen Godhead of the whole, his feet firm based on life's stupendous wings, omnipotent, a lonely seer of time, inward, inscrutable, with diamond gaze.
Thank you. So the universe is like a colored veil. It's a veil of many, many colors, which is disguising or hiding from us the Godhead, the individual form of the divine that is supporting this universe. But for King Aswapati, this colored veil of all the forms, all the structures, it's removed. And at the unimaginable end of the huge riddle, the huge mystery of created things, this strange mystery and enigma that we live in, he can see. He sees from a distance the Godhead of the whole. He has feet. His feet are based firmly on life, on the life principle. The life principle, like a huge bird that deity has his feet based upon life. He is all-powerful. He can see time. He can see the whole of time in one gaze, everything that happens in time. His awareness seems to be indrawn, inward, inscrutable. Something that's inscrutable is something that you can't read it and understand it easily. A person who has an inscrutable expression, you never know what they're thinking. They don't show any, give any clues to their inward state. With diamond gaze. So the eyes are very, very powerful and pure and shining.
Attracted by the unfathomable regard, the unresolved slow cycles to their found return, to rise again from that invisible sea.
So it's as if that gaze is not so much looking outwards as drawing things inwards. All the cycles of time, of manifestation, are attracted back into that great gaze, that unfathomable regard, that deep look, which is their source, their fount. Everything has come out of that gaze, and everything is returning back into it. And then again they will rise, they will emerge from that invisible sea. So all the cycles of existence being expressed, taking form, and being attracted back again, taken into the silence for a while, and then emerging again. We'll stop there for today. We can take the time and read these lines together. Always a signless, vague immensity brooded without approach, beyond response, condemning finite things to nothingness, fronting him with the incommensurable. Then to the ascent there came a mighty term. A height was reached where nothing made could live. A line where every hope and search must cease, neared some intolerant, bare reality. A zero formed, pregnant with boundless change. On a dizzy verge where all disguises fail, and human mind must abdicate in light, or die like a moth in the naked blaze of truth. He stood compelled to a tremendous choice. All he had been, and all towards which he grew, must now be left behind, or else transform into a self of that which has no name. Alone, and fronting an intangible force which offered nothing to the grasp of thought, his spirit faced the adventure of the inane. Abandoned by the worlds of form, he strove. A fruitful, worldwide ignorance foundered here. Thought's long, far-circling journey touched its close, and ineffective paused the actor will. The symbol modes of being helped no more. The structures nescience builds, collapsing, failed. And even the spirit that holds the universe fainted in luminous insufficiency. In an abysmal lapse of all things built, transcending every perishable support, and joining at last its mighty origin, the separate self must melt or be reborn into a truth beyond the mind's appeal. All glory of outline, sweetness of harmony, rejected like a grace of trivial notes, expunged from being's silence, nude, austere, died into a fine and blissful nothingness. The demiurges lost their names and forms. The great schemed worlds that they had planned and wrought, passed, taken and abolished one by one. The universe removed its colored veil, and at the unimaginable end of the huge riddle of created things appeared the far-seen Godhead of the whole. His feet firm based on life's stupendous wings, omnipotent, a lonely seer of time, inward, inscrutable, with diamond gaze. Attracted by the unfathomable regard, the unsolved slow cycles to their fount returned, to rise again from that invisible sea.